Ever since the dawn of civilization, there has been a curiosity, if not an obsession, with the end of time. In addition to Christianity, other world religions speak about the moment when this present world will come to an end. Recently, these notions have even crept onto the Hollywood screen. Around the globe, people are talking about the movie 2012, which draws on an ancient Mesoamerican prophecy. It depicts the world ending on December 21st, 2012, with frightening scenes of mountains flooding with water, continents falling into the sea, and havoc and destruction falling upon the earth and its 6.5 billion inhabitants. At its core, it highlights our utter powerlessness to save ourselves from impending cataclysmic events, leaving us with only one unsettling question: who will survive in 2012? Today's readings also remind us of the end times, but unlike Mesoamerican prophecy, the Christian scriptures do not tell us when that end will come. In fact, it tells us that only God knows when it will come. The church includes these readings in the Advent season to remind us of the second coming of Christ. The scriptures today tell us there will be signs in the moon, the sun, and the stars. And on earth nations will be in dismay, perplexed by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will die in fright in anticipation of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. We would not be human if we did not tremble before these words. But we would not be Christian if they did not lead us to hope. How might these texts help us in our present and future crises? I remember a very dramatic story told a number of years ago by Father Pedro Arrupe, who was the superior general of the Jesuits shortly after the Second Vatican Council. And he talks about what it was like to live in Japan on August 6, 1945. He was living in Nagasaki, Japan, when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. While he and his companions survived the blast unhurt, they were some of the first to arrive on this devastating scene, which seemed to many like it was the end of the world. After they had gone around the town and they had ministered to people who were sick and who were dying, he welcomed them into their seminary where they were living. He recounts that, "I remember when I was still under the terrible impression of the catastrophe, and some young students were commenting on the power of the weapon employed and calculated the thousands of casualties. After their pessimistic diagnosis, a spontaneous observation occurred to me which impressed them profoundly. After all," he said, "in spite of this new powerful weapon and any others that are still to come, you must know that we have a power much greater than atomic energy. We have the heart of Christ. But while the atomic energy is destined to destroy and atomize everything, in the heart of Christ, we have an invincible weapon whose power will destroy every evil and unite the minds and hearts of the whole of humankind in one central bond, His love and the love of the Father." These powerful words bring us to the heart of the Advent season. The truth is that God's love for us is the most powerful force in the world. And not even the end of the world can change that truth. These readings make us aware of our own powerlessness before some pending and future events. But they also point to the power of our Savior, who one day will atomize all disorder and sin and restore all creation to its original design. Christian faith and hope is not just optimism, which simply tries to find the best out of a difficult situation. Rather, Christian faith and hope assert that love rules the universe, and God's love, in the end, will conquer everything, even when our experience in this world sometimes suggests otherwise. These readings are not meant simply to frighten us or make us worry about who will survive, but to arouse us from our sleeping, to waken us from sin and injustice, and to strengthen our vision so that Christ one day will make right all that is wrong in the world through the power of his undying love for us. Our task is to welcome Christ and to be ready when he comes. In this liturgy, we proclaim that Christ has come and that Christ will come again. But we also proclaim that our duty is to welcome him into our hearts right now and to let his love reign over our lives, to trust him with all that burdens us and afflicts us, and to believe that he acts now in our midst. Our task, in other words, is to bring ourselves into harmony with Christ, who is God's justice, who is our peace, who is the one who works in the world to bring about right relationships, who is the one who heals us of our divisions, who is the one, as Isaiah prophesied, is the gentle rain that brings forth salvation. In many ways, this is like a story that was told a number of years ago about a village that was experiencing a terrible drought. They had not a drop of water in the area for 5 years. And in many ways, they thought that their world was going to come to an end. They tried everything. They even consulted local rainmakers to see if they could help, but to no avail. But they'd heard about someone who lived in a faraway land who might be able to help them. He also was a rainmaker. And when they found him, they begged him to come visit their village. And they offered him anything that he wanted, hoping that he could be the one to bring down water from heaven. But he says, "I do not want any of these things that they offered." He said, "All I want is a space where I can be quiet and I can be alone." So they found him a little cave way up in the hills where he hid away for 4 days. There was no movement at first, and the people began to worry. But then on the 5th day, clouds began to form, and then a heavy rain started to fall, which gradually quenched the thirst of the parched earth. When the people saw the water, they were overjoyed that he had accomplished such a miracle. But he replied, "I've done nothing. But I come from a place where everything is in balance and in harmony. There is order there, and life is aligned with heaven. But when I arrived here, when I saw the way that you treat each other, when I felt the discord and division, when I saw the confusion and the lack of understanding, the first thing I noticed is that everything in your village is in disorder and out of harmony with heaven. So I spent 4 days putting myself in harmony with the divine. And then the rains came.